coming. I just want to do a quick, just get a sense of who's in the audience. How many people here consider themselves founders, entrepreneurs? Awesome. Look at that. That's great. Wow. Okay, cool. Are there funders here? People that are angel funders? No? Okay, so are you entrepreneurs? So it looks like Michelle's going to be... Okay, so Val, yeah, people will go to Val after, and then Michelle will be totally swamped afterwards, right? Okay, here we go.
I have to catch a plane.
Yeah. So I think we'd just like to jump right in with our founder stories. And so I'm going to turn over to Emily Cushman here, to tell her story of how she got into this business.
Yeah, so basically, a year ago, literally a year ago, I was still sitting in a classroom kind of finishing up school. So I graduated 2012, and really immediately out of that, I was from Windsor, so background in business, bit of computer science, but I got accepted into the Next 36 Accelerator in Toronto. Who's familiar? Is anyone familiar with the Next 36? Okay, so a couple of you. So this is really an accelerator program, 9 months, and it gives you up to $80,000 to really start and launch a new tech company. Throughout that program, you're given mentors, you're given access to resources, and following that, you go through this big demo day. So once I was accepted into the program, this is right after graduation, I applied, and I actually didn't really know what the program was all about. It was just called the Next 36, and I thought that was really cool. I just thought I had to be part of it, whatever it was. So as part of the application, they actually made you submit a YouTube video, just kind of a 60-second, why choose you type of thing. And I thought this was great because, coming out of my undergrad at Windsor, I figured I probably look like everyone else who's applying, or, for myself, probably worse, who knows. But I thought the video was a great opportunity to really, say a bit more about yourself, give a bit more into your personality. So once I got into the program, because you're chosen as an individual, they did this team building exercise. So they narrowed it down to the 36 people who made it in. You had to, speed date kind of all 36 to decide who would be on your team, and it was teams of 4. And then from there, you really had to come together and come up with a business idea that you would then present the next day to like 200 people. So really, as we were sitting down thinking of, okay, what can we do? None of us really had any business sense or business ideas, and we thought back to that application process of, it was really interesting that they used video as part of the application. It was a competitive advantage for a lot of us. And one of our mentors was actually complaining because he, at the time, worked at a uniform company, and they had to hire 300 summer students. And he thought, it would have been great if they had some kind of video as part of this process. So we thought, okay, that's interesting because video could be great in admissions, but Skype still requires face-to-face. YouTube is still very public and consumer-facing. So we ended up, just pitching this idea for this product that would essentially be, recruiters could ask video questions and applicants could reply back through video, and it would really streamline your whole hiring process. So we ended up pitching, the next day, really not thinking too much of the idea, but it had fantastic response. And then over the next couple months, we really started talking to different HR managers, really picking their brains. And, they thought this was great. And, the combination of that and being able to do it on your phone, kind of wherever you are in the world, really, it really helped. So that's kind of how we jumped into it. And from there, we formed Kira Talent, which is, a video screening company. And we've, over the past year, have now built this business where we've gone from 2 to 16 employees, and we work mostly with academic institutions, so schools. Ryerson is one of our clients, and essentially for students who are applying to get into university, now they can actually submit a video along with their application after watching the admissions director ask them video questions. So they get to learn a bit more about the school, they get to say a little bit more about themselves, and because you get applicants coming in from all over the world, it just makes the process a whole lot easier. So, yeah.
And money.
Once I finished the Next 36 in August, we raised an angel round in October, and that really allowed us to go from 2 to 6 in terms of employees. In January, we brought on board a bunch of co-ops, and right now we're actually just about to close our, Series A type of round. So that'll be announced in the next couple weeks. So very excited about that.
So this is the bar, right? Like in a year to Series A. Unbelievable. So thanks for that.
Exciting.
Cool.
Yeah. So what do you think about that as a funder?
Well, I have to tell you that back in the day,
yeah.
a little older, students now and young people are so lucky. you're so fortunate to be an entrepreneur now. Go back 20 years, minor jump. When I started my first business, not in technology, because I was actually in medicine, and they at that time didn't know what technology was. It was very traditional. There were no programs. Nobody talked about being an entrepreneur. If you actually considered starting your own business, you were told, you're nuts. Please, leave the room. We'll send you down the hall for some counseling. You should become an engineer, a doctor, or a lawyer. And that was the rule of law. That's what you did. And so from medicine, I remember the day I decided that I was going to leave medical school was the day I walked into one of the clinic rooms. And in medicine at the time, they started you in clinic right away, which was great. You learned quick, whether you want to be there or not. And that day, I learned very quickly that I really, really like to be on the leading edge of innovation and not on the leading edge of somebody's, table, looking at them and doing stuff. Not good. So when I started as an entrepreneur, because I've done both the entrepreneur side and the founder side, which is a little bit different, more to your, Vicki, to your... My mic sucks. Can we get rid of it?
Yes, we can.
Awesome.
Is this better?
Not this one, that one.
Yeah.
I get it. Is this any better?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I kind of followed a similar path to Vicki from the standpoint that I have played on both sides of the coin, both as an entrepreneur, founder, and also as a funder. And I really took my medical perspective and took that in a whole different direction. I actually went into energy technology. So I built a solar panel manufacturing company using a technology out of Germany. We built and sold that company to a California-based company. And very interesting experience at that time. Again, very early on in a space that nobody knew anything about. Very leading edge innovation. We were building solar panels that would sit on a roof like this. And, but again, very leading edge and very innovative. Not a lot of people wanted to give us money. We raised $2 million to support the development of that company before it was sold. That $2 million came from angel investors. The VCs and the private equity guys wouldn't touch us with a 10-foot pole because we were a little too advanced for them. And we went on, my team that I had done that first company with, we actually went on and we did that 2 or 3 more times in both technology industries related to the energy sector and then outside of that. And then in my last company that we again sold, the investor in that company decided to invite me to the dark side. And I went and I worked in merchant banking and venture capital for about 10 years. And I invested in energy companies, traditional energy companies, and in the technology space surrounding those. So everything from IT to environmental, building walls using recyclable materials. And got the other perspective. And it's interesting when you come from being a founder to now having to part with your cold hard cash and being held accountable to other investors for that money. And so it was a very interesting time. And then by extension of that, moving on to set up some accelerators that we thought would help us with our business as an investor, as a financier. And at the end of the day, I've come back full circle, and we've founded another energy technology venture capital fund to do both of those things. So we incubate now entrepreneurs looking to get into the energy technology space, and we finance those companies right from the founder all the way through to a Series C round. So, $15 or $20 million at the top of that. And we work with the corporate sector to make that facilitation, to your point about wanting to talk to your customer first, to make that facilitation happen with those technology companies in a unique space. So I'm giving you the Coles notes. There's lots of gory details in between you don't need to worry about.
So on that, what makes a good incubator?
Oh, loaded question.
Well, there's so many out there. They're all over, right? And everyone's like, I'm setting up an incubator. I'm setting up an incubator.
Yeah.
This happened like 12 years ago. So we had the first public incubator in Canada with my company. And then the market crashed and everyone went, incubation? What a joke. That was the stupidest idea ever. And I'm laughing, right? This is what happens when you get older. You see things like repeat themselves. And so here we are again with everybody starting up incubators, and I'm waiting to see what's coming. So what makes a good one?
Trendy.
Yeah, it's very trendy.
It's very trendy. So I have my own, I'll give you my perspective.
That's
So I actually think a really good incubator is a place where you've got the water cooler in the middle.
Yeah.
And you've got a combination of entrepreneurs with great ideas that are actually being driven to build those companies. You've got a time frame by which to do that. In the energy space, it's significantly longer than in your space. Energy sector companies take about a year to really get to the prototype stage. But really, the water cooler. You've got the entrepreneurs, you've got the investment professionals, the angels, typically at that stage, angels or early stage venture, and you've got corporate partners that are going to be able to drive traffic in terms of customer. And really, you can bring in the networks, but those are your three core components. Just like building any great company, you need your core elements, and those would be the three, I would think, to make it work, it work properly.
So Emily, on that note, you're in an incubator right now, and you came from a program that had a ton of resources at the Next 36, and you could reach pretty much any person in the country you wanted to through your network, right? With the Next 36. But you decided to go into this incubator at the Digital Media Zone. Why did you do that?
Great question. I mean, when we came out of the Next 36, the Next 36 was a great program because it connected, university students with zero or very little entrepreneurial experience when it comes right down to it, bridging you to actually starting these companies, which was great. So it was a great bridge. When it came to the DMZ, so we finished the summer in August, and we thought we knew everything. We were ready to take over the world, and there was just two of us. It was myself and my co-founder Conrad. But then reality sinks in once you're out of the incubator, and then you kind of realize, oh my gosh, this is every day now. This is my job. And so the more that we kind of familiarized ourselves with the DMZ, the more I guess we saw it as a great opportunity that once we were out of this incubator to really take that next step into what is it actually like to run a company on a day-to-day basis? Because at the DMZ, so one great thing for us at least was that they gave us free space for 4 months, which is fantastic because as a startup and especially as a young 2-person startup, you're probably not generating tons of money to sustain yourself, at least not within the first 2 months. If you are, that's wildly impressive. But we weren't. So the DMZ was amazing in terms of giving you space to move in. You were really in this great environment with 50, 70 other startups that were kind of either at your stage or a lot further and everything in between. Several programs that could really educate you on what it was actually like to do this on a day-to-day basis. So I think that's really what attracted us to the DMZ was just that there were so many resources that answered that question of how. How are you going to approach this now that this is your full-time job and now that this is what you're doing? Because startups don't really come with a manual. It's like having a baby, I guess. It's just they don't tell you a lot of the things that are going to happen and that end up happening, and you make decisions with very little information. But to have that network of 50 other startups that are exactly where you're at and doing what you're doing is really helpful to bridge you to that next stage of now I'm ready to raise money. Now I know a lot more about what I'm doing. I can get connected to investors. So that's really what DMZ has been for us.
Okay, cool. So one of the things that I think was on the initial invite for this event was the question, where are all the female funders and founders? This is a pet peeve of mine for a long time. This question is painful. So about just over a decade ago, I was running, I actually found myself having a venture capital fund. We had a company that went public. We raised a bunch of money to support the next generation of entrepreneurs. And in the first 3 months of having this fund, I had 400 applications for funding, and only 3 were from women. And I thought, I just busted my butt to get this fund, and I am going to have to invest all my money in men. This is going to make me crazy. Where are the women? And so I sat down with some of the women in my organization and said, what are we going to do about this? So we came up with this idea to create the SheEO competition. And it was a $250,000 investment in a young woman under the age of 30 for a business idea. And honestly, it was really, really hard to find people to apply because it was so much money. It was $250K. They had to actually go for the big idea. They had to be a high-growth business. And so we ended up doing all these boot camps and stuff to get people excited about the possibility for them and coaching them on how their idea could get bigger. Fast forward, 12 years. I spent a bit of time at Mars when I came back from Silicon Valley, and we did a little survey on the number of female founders in the Mars portfolio. And so there are there's clean tech, health, and then ICT at Mars, 3 different groups. And in the clean tech group, it was 1% of the portfolio was female founders. In health, it was 2.5, and in IT, it was 5. And I'm like, oh my God, I think that's even worse than it was 12 years ago. What's with that? So here you go. Here's the question. Where are they? What's up?
You're asking, I have no idea.
Over to whomever.
I'm looking around the room.
Yeah, there's a bunch here.
I mean, I think, honestly, because startups are becoming more prolific, because there's a leveling of the playing field, let's say, with respect to starting up a company and being entrepreneurial and it being okay for you to do that, I think the rules of the game are changing. And okay, I'm a girl. I've never really looked at building a business as, well, I need more women or I need more guys and in venture capital, you're working with guys. I mean, there are three women in venture capital in Canada, maybe 5, but no more than that. It's more in private equity, but they're hiding. But people that are kind of outward facing, there's between 3 and 5 women. But I think it's more around the fact that you've got an opportunity now to stand up, take a bow, decide what you want to do, follow your gut, and do it. And the doors are opening up more and more now to allow that to happen. Whereas I think before, we always wanted to do it, but generationally, you didn't have the right impetus wasn't there. The right community wasn't maybe as prolific as it is now. And I think it's awesome to see such a massive opening of opportunity for guys and girls alike to do what they want to do and make money at it. It's pretty cool.
It does feel like it's really opened up. There's just a huge number of startups now in Toronto than compared to even 5 years ago. And
I think, too, there's more opportunity for people to not so much worry about fitting into the box. Yeah. You can go outside the box. You don't have to be a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, or engineer. You can explore opportunities and devise ways in which to create a product or a service that meets a market need.
Well, it certainly feels like the box is leaking pretty significantly if you look out there right now, right? Like almost everything needs to be reinvented, so there's a real opportunity
massive.
From an entrepreneur perspective. So how many friends do you have that are entrepreneurs?
Oh, several that are entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
But in terms of female entrepreneurs, I mean, we always joke because there's so many, women in business and female conferences and entrepreneurial conferences now, and there's the same, 10 female entrepreneurs at every single conference because, especially when it comes to venture-backed startup, the numbers get even smaller and smaller. And especially in our field of, software technology, I think one of the main reasons for that, at least, that we've seen, is that, a lot of times to start these companies, you need someone in the company who knows how to develop software if you're going to do a software company. And, I think it just comes back to the fact that when you look at the graduating classes in all universities of, okay, how many female software engineers are graduating? It's getting better, but the numbers are still pretty low. And at the end of the day, if you want to be starting all of these software companies, you do need someone who possesses that capability. And a lot of times what ends up happening is you get a super driven, business background female who then needs to find a software guy to fill that role. So, then again, that's where sometimes you'll see our situation. So there's myself and my co-founder. My co-founder is technical. He graduated Waterloo Computer Science. Myself, Windsor Business, a little bit of computer science, but still probably couldn't have done the whole thing by myself. And again, that's a very common story. So you'll see a lot of females that either they partnered with someone, or maybe they had that rare capability. But I think the more and more as we see, female engineers graduating, learning how to code, whether it's through Ladies Learning Code or Code Academy or whatever it is, I think that's when you'll start to see a lot more of these software companies. And, again, it goes back down to high school and middle school when, girls are deciding, what they want to do when they grow up. And, if more of them started coding at an earlier age, well, then I'm sure we'd see tons of companies that were female-led in software. But I think it's coming. I think it's something that we'll see over the next 5-10 years.
Yeah.
So that actual story sounds pretty familiar
Yeah.
to a non-technical founder. So my question to the funders then is what she's described, something that's unique to women, or is it that VCs or investors undervalue, or at the earliest stages don't really want to pay for the business skills? They just want to invest directly in a technical founder. Is that really the structural issue that's at the heart of it, or is there actually a reluctance to invest in women?
So I haven't seen a reluctance to invest in women out here. I mean, surface.
Nobody gets up and says, "Hey,
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
just don't invest in women."
Really. I am wearing boots and. No, I don't see that. If you think logically about why venture invests, they invest because they want to see their return. Period, paragraph. In energy tech investing, we're starting to see more women who have technical expertise get involved in the business side. So there's starting to be a bit of a transfer there. It's slow. But in Calgary, which is where I'm from, you are seeing more and more of that. Now that's a microcosm, it's not globally, but you are seeing that as a microcosm. And there are groups in the US in the angel space that are, Golden Seed is an example out of New York. They have chapters all across the United States now. They only invest in women-led technology enterprise, or an enterprise where there is a woman in the senior management team. So there is some of that trend.
Is that something that we need in Canada?
Golden Seeds doesn't care about borders. So I applied to Golden Seeds actually with my one venture ago when I was in Silicon Valley and went through the whole process with them. They're pretty interesting. There's also a group called ASTIA, which is like an incubation program for women that they're starting up a fund as well. There's a lot of stuff emerging around funding women-led ventures. There's Women 2.0. And there's a bunch of stuff here. Heather Payne is doing a great job at Ladies Learning Code and HackerU, and really trying to get a lot more people into this space. Sheena, I see over here, is doing some good work in the space, getting women entrepreneurs supported so they can get to a funding space.
Oh wait, so Sheena?
Sheena, yeah.
Hi everybody, my name is Sheena. We own a platform called Making Shit Happen, if I'm allowed to swear. And our purpose...
Yeah.
And our platform really helps women go to that next level. So take your idea and blow it into the water.
And are you based with one of the accelerators, or you're on your own?
Yeah, we're on.
Okay. And by the way, put your hand up if you would like to ask any question. Typically, we try to have as fluid as possible. Who else is a founder that just wants to quickly tell us about what you're up to?
Amy.
Anyone?
Oh, Amy.
Amy, say what you...
Amy. Go ahead. I'm just using the mic so that...
No pressure. No pressure.
I can use it. I can stand up. Hi, my name is Amy Cross. Yeah, my name is Amy Cross, and I'm a founder of a site called Vitamin W, which is a media platform for women for news, business, philanthropy, and change in tech. It's based out of New York because I'm a journalist who's worked in Canada for many years, but back in my home country, it's a bigger market. So we've been up for about 6 months. We had our public launch a while ago, sold out O'Brien. We're adding different sort of business divisions. We're just slowly growing. Anyway, I've been funding it all myself, actually, because after one family exit.
That's the way to go.
But actually, I went to San Francisco last week to talk to some other nice,
Good.
big, deep-pocketed ladies.
Nice. We also have Deb. Oh, sorry, Suzanne. Suzanne.
Hi, my name.
That's better.
Hello, my name's Suzanne Huber, and I'm the managing director of redfork.com. I'm with a group of middle-aged men, and I'm the person inside the company kind of growing it right now and exploring the incubator because we need a little bit of help, structuring things and whatnot. But my question to you is, what are some of the challenges you faced, as female founders and entrepreneurs, dealing with, you're working primarily with men throughout your career, so I guess what were some of the challenges you faced in that regard, and also just some of your challenges you faced, period?
So one of the things I faced, so when we had a company that was getting a lot of traction and excitement, we had a group of bankers come to us and they wanted to invest in us, merge their fund with ours, they merged their fund with our business, and then take us public. And when we got into all the negotiations, my brother was a co-founder, and they wanted him to be the CEO because he's like, the hockey player, knight on a white horse, awesome looking dude. And they're like, we want him to be the CEO. And that was it was brutal. It was totally brutal. And he was totally fine. He's like, no, we won't do that. But it was hard to hear that, and it's because there's a certain, they're looking for a certain, thing. And it's likeness to what they know, what they are. And I'm clearly not of the sort of venture capital DNA. Really different. So that's one thought for me. How about you guys?
For me personally, I don't normally see too many differences on the male-female front. I think the one thing, and I've literally only started to notice this within the past 2 weeks, and not from investors, but even just people on my team sometimes, where I find if someone, one of the guys on our team will make a point for something or will make an argument, people immediately latch onto that. But sometimes if I say things, I have to give 3 or 4 arguments before they're like, yeah, okay, you're right. So you need a little bit more, I found, evidence to support certain things. But again, I've just noticed this recently. I think the biggest thing that I face though more is the young versus old factor, the fact that I'm not 40 plus gray hair, 10 years experience. I think that's been really difficult, especially in terms of raising money. Been, investors want to see experience. They want to see people who've done this before, who know what they're doing with their money. So,
can I just make a comment? That is the opposite of Silicon Valley, by the way, which is if you're over 30, you're so not getting funded. There's a massive age bias there, whereas here it's more conservative, right? So actually, have you done this 3 times and we'll give you some money? Yeah.
No, and it's hilarious because my co-founder is younger than me. So he's 2 years younger than me. And every time we go to Silicon Valley, he's like the golden child because he's 21 and he's doing this. And it's Canada's the complete opposite. So
it's interesting because we're raising this new fund, and all of us have been in venture capital before, and all of us have raised funds before, but we haven't done it together. So we're actually considered a startup with 3 first-time operators, which is very interesting. And just to play on your theme for a minute there, with respect to the differences, you do in the finance space, you do see, I'll be honest, you do see the difference. It is, it's not palpable, but it is there. And it's there primarily because there are so few women in the industry that those that are in the, let's say, the center of influence, that have the ability to make decisions, you have to raise your voice a little bit in order to get your point across. Doesn't mean that it's not going to get taken, but you do have to raise your voice to be heard. It's not because anybody thinks you're stupid. It's just that's the way it is. The good thing is that, as I look across the angel landscape, more and more women are entrepreneurial and exiting companies, a la Amy, a la Vicki, and you, likely, soon. And so what's happening is, as these women get more successful, that is translating back into the ecosystem as investors in those new companies. And so I think, over time, I think we will see a leveling of the playing field and less gender bias, whatever you want to call it. Because, at the end of the day, we're all the same. We're all equal.
I want to add on, I'm pretty gender neutral to this. I mean, there's good guys and bad guys, good girls and bad girls, and it's all about mentorship. and there's no race, color, gender that goes to mentorship. So maybe the call to action, and there are some very successful female entrepreneurs, owner-operators in Ontario. I mean, ones that have grown their businesses to 100 million. So the call to action is to these women is, are they mentoring? My experience has been with investors and business captains, is the exposure I've had men actually that have been some of my greatest mentors for my experiential learning. But I've had good men and I've had bad men.
Yeah.
So it goes back to solving a problem and then in the market and then identifying who within that segment of the market that would be a good mentor to you in your business growth. And I don't think you should put, a gender on it. And then back to the women, it's a call out to you. What are you doing to give back to the next generation? Are you proactively leading that?
What's the company?
Deb.
Self. It's called Deb.
Deb. Deb is one of kind. Category of one.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Global ambassador.
Yeah.
I'm the ambassador for Singularity University that was co-founded by Peter Diamandis and Ray Corswell. I'm a volunteer. I'm a repat back to the ecosystem from the U.S. So.
Well, I'm actually really glad you brought up mentorship because it's one of my favorite things to do. And I, at any given time, I'm mentoring 30 to 40 young people, and then they send those people to me. So I'm a mentor in the Next 36 program. I'm a mentor to some of the companies in the DMZ, mentor to a lot of ed tech startups. I really, really love doing this work. And one of the things that I've made a rule now to the people that I mentor is I'm not going to mentor you unless you're mentoring someone else, because there's so much value that they get and wisdom that I'm sharing that I require that they pass that on, because I don't think you can be great unless you teach someone else to be great. So it's a bit like the manifesto, Che Cathari, I don't know if anyone knows Che from Manifesto, but they have this great line, which is each one, teach one, which I just love, yeah.
Yeah, no, I do the same thing. I mentor in Toronto, in Calgary, and in Houston, so, pick a city.
Nice.
But mostly in the energy space now, and a few in ICT broadly, but enterprise. And what's interesting for me is not just mentoring the company and the sort of the entrepreneurial team, but also and this is particularly true in Houston, they've got a very solid mentorship program defined for this particular space anyways. But what they do is they get all of the mentors together, and we actually do like a mentorship boot camp the week before we mentor. And then we spend a week of intense sort of bonding with our teams, and then mentorship becomes a virtual thing for a period of time. And it's pretty cool, and it's something that with the fund that we're building into. So we actually will have a whole crew of folks that have been there, done that as business people and as engineers and so on in the oil patch, delivering mentorship back to the companies we invest in. So that's part of the value add of the fund that we would not have normally done if we were more traditional VC.
Awesome. We have, just to jump in for a sec, we have a program running in August for any of you who may be interested. It's Women in Social Enterprise. So if you have a strong social impact business with a potential sustainable business model, we're running a 1-month incubation program where it's funded by 10 women who would not consider themselves angels, who are each writing a check for $5,000, and then that $50,000 pot is going to go to the sort of top 2 ventures voted on in the cohort by their peers. So the peers will determine who they think the 2 are with the strongest potential for success, and they'll each get a $25,000 grant. And that's running out of the DMZ, so let me know if you're interested, and I'll send you some information. Yeah.
Would there be money going to other country after?
Talk to me after. We'll see. Yeah. Cool.
Hi, I'm Natasha. I'm an entrepreneur, and I have a startup, and I just have a comment and a question. My comment is, I lived in San Francisco, in Los Angeles. I was a successful Silicon Valley publicist, and now I'm an entrepreneur. My problem in San Francisco and LA, and even here in Toronto, is I went to Astia.org.
Astia?
Astia. And I found it very expensive just to be a part of it. And so all my money went to hiring programmers. So that's why I couldn't join them. And then Women 2.0, I was too advanced for them, so they really wanted beginners. So here I find myself always alone. And I went, I've had many meetings with angel investors. 2 of them, the guys were kind of hitting on me. And the one guy was holding my hand at the end of the meeting. So it's very frustrating for me. So here's my question. My question is, I have my website launched. I'm pre-revenue, but I have about 3 people that are interested in advertising on my site. But I just can't get to that next step. And I don't know if I should go for an angel investor or should I build up, it's a social network that I have, should I build up more members to gain more leverage and do it on my own, or should I just go for an angel investor now? Because it's starting to get expensive to maintain everything. So I'm kind of in the in-between stage.
This is your mentorship possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think, you know, it all comes back to, yeah, like how many people want to be on your site, want to be advertising on your site. I mean, the more users, the more customers you have, that'll drive the angel
But how
investing.
many? Because I have about 5,000, but I know that I need 100,000 members to really have advertisers kick in, you know?
So out of the 5,000, so this is like 5,000 paid advertisers on your site?
No, I have
Users.
5,000 members, just people using it, and
Yeah.
I'm starting to increase my members from like 200 to 300 a week to 500 a week, 500 women a week signing up to my site. How does that happen?
How do I do that?
It took me so long just to build the site, you know?
Yeah.
So that's, I think, really, I don't know that you have to have a million users, but you certainly have to be able to show that you've got acceleration.
Yeah, and just to add like another jargony thing, it's like traction is the new IP, right? 10 years ago, everyone would ask you about, you know, your intellectual property and your patents and what was patentable, and now it's traction. Like, how many people do you have? And everything's expected to be a hockey stick.
So I should keep going on my own until I have more traction?
Well, you'll find out pretty quickly if people aren't interested. They're going to say, you know, bring us more. You can just go out and ask for advice when you're looking for money, and everyone will probably tell you that you need more people before they'll pay attention, right? Because they need to see that you're actually going to be able to get to revenue, profitability, with the money you give them. So, but if they think, you know, you're at 5,000, you really need to get 100,000 before you can be profitable, or 1 million to be profitable, and they're going to put this money into you, and that money's not going to get you there, then it's a black hole for them, right? So they want to know that you're on the path to that. Yeah, I don't know if
Yeah, you have to be able to show them that you're going to be able to get to your numbers and that those numbers translate into a monetary return for you and ultimately for the investors if they're going to put money into your company. So the bottom line, whether it's hockey stick or it's, you know, kind of bumping along, in your case, you're going to need to show that there's enough stickiness on your site through your network that you're going to be able to consistently drive revenues.
And I mean, I guess
that's ultimately the goal.
Yeah, and just like one thing to add, and like on the plus side, I mean, if you can get people, you know, on your site and wanting to pay, and you get customers, like even if you just get a few customers that are just extremely happy with their experience and the product and everything, sometimes even that can be enough. Like showing a really strong user story of someone who, you know, they went through the product, it was an amazing experience, and then being able to communicate that to investors that, okay, this is what happened. I know it only happened 2 or 3 times, but this is how I can make it happen 1,000 times, right? Like it's easier to kind of paint that picture. So I think that's.
Oh, thank you very much, because I have my first, so thank you very much.
Thank you. I've been a member of the CanWet Toronto mentoring system. CanWet
just a plug, they don't pay me, I'm a member, has a very good mentoring program with lots of mentors looking for people to mentee. There's also something that hasn't come up, which is called sponsorship. It's also important to get sponsors, which are people that can actually recommend you to be with customers or to get customers or to get jobs. I have two questions. Maybe what you were just talking about, it's by getting more members. It sounds like you're talking about a B2C or business to consumer scenario. I think I'd like to hear what you think if you still need to ramp up a lot of members and a lot of hits and users if you're in a B2B environment. And also what I found and what people that I've talked to have found is that women tend to leave either the startup or the tech environment after 10 years or when they have kids, and it's really hard to get back in. So if you can comment on any or all of those.
Yeah, sure. So I'll attack the first one because I'm sorry, I can't give too much on the second yet. But in terms of B2B, so we are a B2B company. We sell directly to other companies, interview software. And I mean, essentially, for us, yeah, it's not necessarily about users or how many people are creating interviews. It is very much about how many customers are paying us, how many do we have on board. And, I think the biggest thing for that, is really, building brand, building recognition, customer referral programs. So when you do get 1 or 2 customers that are extremely happy, giving them some kind of incentive to refer you to other, potential customers in their network, especially with us. I mean, HR, they all love to talk with each other. It's a very tight network. But, so there's other ways that you can really go about kind of building that user base and kind of showing that story of, here's how we got the 1 or 2 customers on board and how we're going to repeat it. A lot of times too, I mean, if you go after more of a vertical strategy, so right now we target retail, professional services, and schools. And, perfect example, when we got 1 school on board, all the other schools kind of took notice, and then it became more of a domino effect where, they saw that 1 technology was being utilized, all the due diligence was done, so they just had to hop on board with it. They're doing it, it must be great, we'll do it too. So yeah, I think, there's a lot of roundabout ways you can go to kind of build up that base. It is a bit more strenuous, and you're not necessarily going to see 50,000 businesses jumping on board. You do need to build kind of hit that critical mass, and from there, it becomes a bit easier. But until then, it's a very manual and labor-intensive process. Just the nature of the game, I guess.
Yeah. In the energy space, it's a totally different environment. So it's all B2B, because in my industry, we're not selling direct to the customer. But if you think about the oil sands, there are really only 6 customers. So the intention of building a technology company that's suitable for that space is to identify a target, a problem that you're going to solve. And in our case, we look for problems that have an environmental solution, that have a social benefit, as well as solve a critical problem with respect to the economics of drilling, pulling oil out of the ground, or for that matter, any of the adjacents above and below ground. But the one thing that I will say about the technology development opportunities in the energy space right now, and what's very unique, is that there are a ton of opportunities to create change in the energy sector. And the energy companies, those 6, and all of the adjacent engineering firms that support those, are all looking for people that have technology backgrounds that can bring to them a solution to solve a critical problem in the industry. And if you think about the statistics of this, to 2020, if we look outwards, there's going to be a 35% cost reduction driven by the industry using technology to drive their costs down and their production up, so that we have more accessible resources. And the other thing that I'll note to your point about verticals is that in our space, we invest in technologies that will solve a problem in the oil sands, but we look at how that technology company can serve as a platform for other adjacent industries. So can it help the mining industry? Can it help the agricultural sector? And there's a ton of technologies that are coming up through the university systems, including information technology, social media, closed networks, RFID chips, and so on, that are being used by these more traditional companies now with a very unique application. So, I would encourage people to think outside the box, as you're mostly entrepreneurs, thinking outside the box about how you can attack those markets as well.
Great. Alyssa, got a mic for you here.
So my name's Alyssa. I'm one of the entrepreneurs at the Next 36 program that they're talking about. And I kind of know your story, so this question is more for the other ladies. But as a young entrepreneur, I feel a lot of us have pressure from two different angles. So people are telling us as we're older, you have time, be gentle with your life. But then really, if you haven't started the new Facebook at 23, it's like, what are you doing? What are you waiting for? So my question is, what did you do right after graduation? Do you wish you had started entrepreneurship earlier, or do we have time?
So I thought, I was always looking for freedom. That's my whole thing. Ever since I was a kid, I was looking for who looks the most free, like they're having the most fun doing what they want to do. And there wasn't a lot of that going on. And so I had this amazing uncle who said to me, it's really not, it's about, striking things off your list. Make a huge list of all the things you think you might want to be, try them and go, nope. So I spent a lot of time doing that. I thought I wanted to be an academic, so I did a master's, then I applied for my PhD, and I wasn't sure I wanted to do that, so I went to Europe. And the wall fell down 2 weeks after I got to Europe. So I became an entrepreneur. I never thought I would be an entrepreneur, but in Prague, everyone was dreaming about what they were going to do now they were free. So I was like, now that I'm free, I'm going to start this. Now that I'm free, I'm going to do this. I'm like, oh my God, I'm free too. What am I going to do? I grew up in a place where you're already supposed to be free, but I didn't feel free. To Michelle's point, when I finished university, it's like you do this or this or this. And I'm like, oh my God, all those things seem so boring to me. I can't imagine doing that for the rest of my life. So I was freed by the tanks leaving Prague and happening to be there right after, and I became an entrepreneur, and then I just became a serial entrepreneur and can't stop, and I'm totally unemployable, impossible to work anywhere. I break all the rules, I'm always a pain in the ass, and so I just can't, I have to do my own thing. So I'm a huge fan. If you have that kind of personality where you really want to create your own path, on a beach, I won't even walk where there are other people's footsteps. I have to go create my own footsteps, right? So I think if that's your personality, this is a wicked time to be alive. There's just so much opportunity. Absolutely everything is broken. Everything.
It's true.
Everything needs to be redefined and redesigned. Pretty much, yeah. Michelle.
No, I'm the same. I'm totally unemployable. I have been since even before I graduated university. And I think that was part of the impetus where, when I went into medicine, I think I was trying to fit. And so I thought, well, this will solve a problem. It'll, my parents will love it. My dad's an engineer. He'll just think this is just off the wall, right? And so, thankfully I was a fairly fast learner. In other respects, not so much. But I was a quick learner in terms of being able to make a mistake that I felt was a mistake and adjust and go, don't really want to do that. And I mean, this will sound really funny because now I invest in technology and I love the leading edge. But my first business out of university was a massage therapy school.
Cool.
I was in medicine. I knew how to educate people about anatomy and physiology. And a buddy of mine was he wanted to build a massage therapy school in Calgary, which is where I graduated. And so he asked me if I would help him write his course curriculum. I'm like, well, how hard can it be? It's a course curriculum. How much do you have to teach? How many hours? We made it up as we went along. We sold it to the Alberta government, and then we were the first massage therapy school in Alberta. It was hilarious. And I thought, this is kind of fun. I can do this again. But I don't want to do it in massage therapy. I want to do it in something really cool. Solar panels. Well, this will be fun. So, you can see, and it's funny because, again, you hear people, and you'll hear some of the older generational investors say, well, you haven't done this for 15 years. You haven't done it for 20 years. At the end of the day, really, what matters most is your ability to stick to your goals, to create the opportunity, and then to see that opportunity through. And to Deb's point that she made earlier about using entrepreneurs or using mentors to help you, there's lots of resources available now that make it so much more palatable and so much easier to find the right people through these networks that can support your vision. And you'll know quickly whether it's a good vision or a bad vision, and then adjust. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you need to be flexible and you need to adjust. And it's a great time right now. I just think, wow, and you're right, it's all broken.
Yeah.
So much opportunity to fix it. It's amazing.
Annie, do you want to tell people what you do? Anne? Oh, you got someone here? Sorry. That's right, I didn't see. Get you after.
Sorry, I just wanted to get back to the question of where are all the female founders, and maybe answer the second part of the question over there. I think, a few months ago, I had an idea and then started asking people for advice what they thought of the idea. And I was very close to not taking that step into actually doing something about the idea. Because I read up a whole bunch of blogs, Paul Graham, and it was all about you have to be 22 and you have to work 24/7 and, you need a co-founder. All these barriers that, if you're a woman starting out over 30 at least, it helps if you're younger. It just stops you in your tracks. But I went to see I'm also a part-time MBA student, so I went to see one of our professors, and she said, you know what, don't worry about that. Create your own path. Like, you'll be the new type of entrepreneur. You don't need to be part of all of that. So really, I think that's what's holding women back. It's that there's this stereotypical entrepreneur, and he is, 20 and codes night and day, and that's how you build Facebook. But it doesn't have to be that way. And the other thing which helped me, I also have a son who's going to be turning 1 in 2 weeks, is that you need to have support. There's no way I could have done this without having a supportive husband who's actually going to be staying at home and being a staying-at-home dad. And so it's the choices we make, I think, and it's really hard to say to women, like, oh, you have to choose between being a mother and founding a company, and so we have to find ways of making both happen. So, yeah.
I want to just give her a clap.
Those are very important issues that
awesome.
I think are very present in the room, but thank you for bringing them up.
That was great.
Somebody over here.
Hi, I just wanted to thank you so much for answering all our questions. My name is Mirna Mortada, and I'm an entrepreneur and starter of a company named Pixel Kit Labs. My question is for you. We are a technology company building solutions to help other companies basically become more efficient and scalable and be able to grow through technology. And my question was, how do us as small companies, and I'm confident that we have the ability to produce great quality technology, how do we get connected with big companies like yours and basically produce technology for you? Thank you.
Good question. So a couple of ways, and again, it depends on who your target market is. And in our space, getting connected to the oil and gas industry or the energy industry in general, it's a little bit tricky. You do need to be able to speak to the right levels so you're not wasting your time and you're not wasting people's time internally inappropriately. So a couple ways. One is identify somebody who is interested in your technology, who can be a mentor, be an advisor to you, who has those connections. And leverage that person to help you identify the right way to enter that company and the right ask. Because that's the other part. There's okay, now I've got the right person, now what am I asking them to do? Or how am I asking them to support? So it's really about identifying that. And then the second part is do your homework. So, you know, again, in the oil and gas industry, in the oil sands, let's use them as an example because they're, you know, we know about them. There's 6 producers that mine oil. Who in those, what do those companies do? Who's public, who's private? Are they Canadian or are they international? If I'm going to sell to them, am I going to sell to their IT department or am I going to sell to their technology development group or their R&D group, depending on the technology that you're trying to sell? And what is going to, what is the problem that I will solve as a result of that? So do some homework. Lots of that information is available publicly. But if you do either one or both of those 2 things in tandem, you'll be in the best position possible to create success. And the other part of this is that, you know, in the energy industry, and it's different in other industries, but in the energy industry specifically, they have a real, their appetite is a little weak when it comes to very early stage technology companies. So the better your story is crafted and the better the relationship you have with that advisor or that person to take you in, the more likely it is that you will be successful.
My name is Anne. I co-founded Local Buttons. It's a fashion company with Consuelo here. And speaking to your point of everything being broken, we found that the fashion industry is broken. So what we do is we refurbish garments and make young professional wear to be sold here in a North American market. But what we do that's a little bit different is we work in Haiti, so we source all our garments there, and we upcycle materials into young professional wear, paying a fair wage. In Haiti, and we're currently, we leave for Haiti tomorrow, and we're building a factory there. So it will be solely our production, and we can control everything that goes in, everything that comes out, and making sure that our social mandate's upheld.
Thanks.
This is more a comment and to extrapolate on what Michelle said. So fundamentally, don't get tripped up on, I can't find mentors or entrepreneurship is way too much work. At the end of the day, you're building a sustainable business. And the reason you're an entrepreneur, or maybe you're a wantrepreneur, there's a big difference, okay? Entrepreneurs feel pain. Entrepreneurs are able to look out into the market and identify a problem that nobody else has solved. Entrepreneurs don't build solutions looking for problems. Entrepreneurs see around corners. Entrepreneurs connect dots. Entrepreneurs work with persistence. If you don't know how to pick up the phone and make an ask, you're not an entrepreneur. So you've got to learn that skill because you have no working capital. You need to get customer feedback to really do your market access plan, to do your product development, refinement. So forget about, I don't know if I can find support, or it sounds like a lot of work, or if you're already saying those things, then what you're really saying to yourself is you're an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs feel pain. They see pain in the market that they want to fix, and they feel pain in trying to fix it. And they want to build a sustainable business even if there's no outside capital. Okay? So that's what it is. You got to self-select. Because if you don't do it, nobody else will. They won't invest.
The hammer.
My question to you is, I find that myself, you know, when you're starting out as an entrepreneur, I feel really challenged, but also inspired, and I'm very resourceful. And I'm finding I'm spread so thin because you're doing so much. I have few interns working part-time, and I make sure I give back to them in various ways. Mentorship. You were saying earlier, did you have mentors when you first started out? How did you find mentors? I know I'm very resourceful now, and I'm getting mentors through Mars, but not always in the right space, like clean tech, not me. So I just want to know, when you started out, how did you look for them, and what's your advice today?
Sure, I'll start. So I had this, I mentioned my uncle previously. He was just this genius mentor, I guess, or I asked him the right questions. I don't know how I asked him the right things, but he was a main mentor to me. And there were, those first people that say yes to you were the ones I held on to super tightly. And then they helped to introduce me to others. And so one of my favorite, when you meet somebody who gets what you're talking about, and there's a ton of people who don't, right? But when you meet that person who gets what you're talking about, the question I always ask is, who are the 5 other people like you that I don't know yet? And that's how I build my network. And it's way easier than constantly spraying all over the place, talking to a million people who don't get it, because it's so disappointing. You're constantly getting this what are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about. But the people who get you will know other people who will get you, right? And really use that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think at least to start off, and I think this is really where all that talk about accelerator programs comes in the picture. That's really what they're there for, to connect you with all of the resources that could potentially, be long-term mentors. And I think the other thing to consider with mentorship is that, because you do meet and you do talk to a lot of people on a daily basis, and you might not know which one out of those people will end up turning into a great mentor. Because I think a lot of times when people say, oh, I'm looking for a mentor, they're thinking that it's like an overnight process of, I'm going to find them and then we're going to be best friends and we're going to talk, every day, and it's going to be great and they're going to help me, and, but it's a long process. It's something where, some of the people now that we talk to, on a daily, weekly basis, I never would have thought in the early days that it would have turned into that. It was kind of something where, we might have met with them once, they gave some good advice, we kept in touch. We gave them small updates as to what we were doing, they got more interested. And, the more that kind of flourished, then they became more formal mentors. But, I think it's not always who you expect, but, it is a longer process to get that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. It's kind of like getting married again. Because when you have a mentor who gets you and who's prepared to, give you their all, that's a person that you want to hang on to. And it's a trusted relationship at the end of the day that you want to build. So like your friends and so on, you really do want to have people that you can trust and that you can rely on to help you get to the next level. I fell into mine. Part of, one half of my family's engineers, the other half are entrepreneurs. And so, I have a little bit of that background flowing through. But I fell into mine actually raising money for a charity. And this guy was very, very wealthy Vancouverite who saw what I was doing and liked my style. And he asked me a little bit more as we moved through we were raising $10 million, I think, for a charity. And he liked my style. He liked what I was trying to do, the things I was trying to do, and how I was integrating with him. He was significantly older than me, in building this charitable organization. And that's how he decided to mentor me, and he was one of the funders in my first company as a result of that. But it was fortuitous. It was not planned. And it wasn't until after that I started planning. I need a few more of him to help me get to the next level. And then, he opened up his Rolodex and so on and so forth. But, you are at the end of the day building relationships. And when you're in business, as you all know, you're building relationships for the long term. That's what it's all about, whether it's with your social network or whether it's with your oil and gas company that you expect is going to have a 20-year life on your contract. So it's all about the relationship at the end of the day, and it's the same with those mentors.
And I think also one quick thing to add is look outside of the Toronto area too. I think one thing that we started to see, especially now, not necessarily when we were starting out, but now as we're going to more conferences in California or in New York or just kind of out of the city, you meet a lot of people there too. And sometimes, you might find an advocate for you at a conference that you meet for coffee the next day, and they might have a great person in mind as well. So like my co-founder is now being mentored by, one of the VPs at LinkedIn just through a conference that we went to, totally random, but they have a bi-weekly phone call. And, so sometimes it just happens in the most unexpected places too, and it's not necessarily in Toronto. Maybe it's where, I don't know what space you work in, but maybe there's a certain area geographically where there's a lot more people that would be great mentors there.
And just a quick comment to that. The problem is, though, that it would be great to have a female mentor, but you're all exhausted, right? You're like, there's so few, it's hard to stretch everybody, and every time you're just asked, I think, by all of us, because there's, like you said, 3 investor types, 2 angels, 4 entrepreneurs. It's tricky. So I guess we just just ignore the sex first.
Yeah, but sort of like parting piece of advice, I think to the earlier point from, what was your name? Kieran. I just love your comments. And, I mentor lots of young people, and I think the thing I find myself saying the most is there is no right answer. There is no path to follow. There's no book to read. You have to find your own path. And so when you read stuff with a grain of salt, right? Like, you have to find what's right for you and trust your instincts and try things out and see how it makes you feel. If you're following a path that makes you feel like crap, stop, right? It seems very simple, but I think it's just really trust yourself, try and find who you are in this, and like work towards your happiness doing what you love.
I don't need to say any more. You stole my line.
Sorry.
No, you're absolutely right. Your instincts are your best guide. Your heart is your best guide. Follow it. If you follow it and you're true to yourself, and you'll know when you're not. When you're not true to yourself, you'll know. You'll get that, I'm not happy. I look in the mirror and I'm not comfortable. You'll know. Follow your gut, follow your heart. It will never, ever steer you wrong. And go for it. You've got a world of opportunity now. It is time to take advantage of that opportunity and really make it sing for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess, and just one last point. But yeah, no, like on that opportunity piece. I mean, I think now more than ever, and Vicki already alluded to it, but it's a great time to be an entrepreneur. I mean, there's so many resources out there. Again, so many broken things that need fixing. And, I think over the next 10 years, and actually we were just interviewing someone today for our company, and she said specifically, I want a job in Toronto because I think that Toronto is at the ground floor of something huge, specifically for women and entrepreneur, and I want to be a part of it. And I think that goes out to all of you. I mean, I think that's something that we can all keep in mind, and that's totally true. So, yeah.